depend on the Bay Area's news station, KGO 810.
Good evening, I'm Pat Thurston. So if you've been listening to my program at all for the last few months, you know that I've spoken a lot about the San Jose Police Department. There are things that are going on at the San Jose Police Department that have caused me great concern and have made me really angry. So I was thrilled when I invited Jim Unlin to join us on the program today. He's actually here in studio. He is the president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. Thank you so much for being here.
Pat, thanks for having me.
There is stuff going on in San Jose, and it ain't pretty.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. So maybe we should just start from the beginning. I mean, so we had a department that seemed to be a pretty good police department in San Jose.
I would call it one of the best in the nation. It was always understaffed, but able to keep a lid on it at 1,400 strong for a city of 1 million.
San Jose is the biggest city in the Bay Area, right?
It is. It's the third largest in the state and the 10th largest in the nation.
So it's a big city, and it needs to have a good functional police department.
Absolutely.
And fire department, too, for that matter. But We're really talking about the police department. So what happened? Because you've been hemorrhaging officers.
Mayor Reed and his council allies happened, in short. Measure B back in 2012, this was pension reform Mayor Reed's way. For the record, for 4 years, I've been saying publicly that we need to do something about pension cost. He had a cooperative president of the San Jose POA that he could have worked with. That's not his style. Collaborative and legal was our style. His was dictatorial and really sought out a mission to eviscerate pensions for police and fire.
So tell me about Measure B. What did it do?
Well, most of it is tied up in court, and the main components of it have been invalidated by a judge, and so the city is appealing that now. So we're in the appeals process. So it hasn't done a whole lot actually to the active officers in Tier 1, the current plan. But what it did was, for officers watching this drama unfold, it kind of set the stage, and they realized what direction their city was taking them. And we've had over 250 officers resign over the last few years, and we've had several hundred retire early.
Well, how big is the force?
Well, we're down now to about 1,000, 1,050, and that includes the academy. And again, that's down from 1,400. Actually able solo patrol officers, we have about 450. We should have about 600. These are officers working the marked units, answering 911 calls. We're about 150 below what we should.
So one of the big problems here that we read about in the paper is that they're recruiting and they get people to go through the academy, but once they go through the academy, they realize that you're in the Bay Area. They're now trained police officers, and they don't have to stay with the San Jose Police Department. They can go somewhere else and be paid better and have better benefits. How is it that San Jose, the biggest city in the Bay Area, is not competitive with other cities in the Bay Area?
Well, we're not, because the mayor and the council have chosen not to be.
It's ridiculous. And if you're the biggest city in the Bay Area, shouldn't you have one of the best quality departments? Shouldn't you be able to recruit the best of the best? And how are you going to do that if you're non-competitive?
That was the thing. We always used to be able to. We have hundreds of laterals on our department's history. And
what's a lateral?
A lateral is a police officer that comes from another agency.
Okay.
We've never lost police officers. Historically, we would have maybe 5 officers that would resign a year. Now we're at about 70 a year. And this is 4 years running. This coincides specifically to Measure B and Reed's reforms and supported by his council.
So Measure B was a measure that was passed by the voters.
It was.
You objected to it. You filed a lawsuit against it. There's an appeals going on, so that's in the court. But I was reading that you had gotten together with the city manager in San Jose and negotiated apparently some sort of a deal that was acceptable to the police officers union, to the firefighters union, and to the city manager. What happened?
It fell apart when it reached the city council.
Why? This is their guy. Their guy agreed to it.
Well, I can't tell you what happens in closed session for council, because that's where it stays, behind closed doors. I think what we have is, politically, these politicians are scared to death to go out and admit Measure B did not turn out the way they expected. Keep in mind, they sold the voters back in 2012. They said, vote for Measure B and we will restore city services. and anything but that has happened. We continue to lose police officers, and it's other departments as well. We're having a hard time filling dispatcher positions, call taker positions, the water treatment plant, any number of other positions are going vacant because we just can't fill them.
So it's a matter of money. They don't have enough money in the coffers.
The city?
Yeah.
No, the city has plenty of money. They're sitting on $1 billion in reserves. They have plenty of money. This is about a philosophy, about a stand. It mixes in with what you were talking about earlier. This is about anti-union, anti-worker, and anti-pension. And they want to take away pensions from the last group of workers that have them.
Police officers right now in San Jose are being required to work overtime.
That's correct.
Penny wise and pound foolish?
Well, in the short term, maybe it's the only answer they have. Again, keep in mind, the first class that we had that was hired under Tier 2, this is the second tier pension plan created by Measure B. It is the worst police pension plan in the state, bar none.
Oh, my God.
The first class that was hired under that plan, we hired 50. We haven't even had them for a year, and we're down to 13. The numbers aren't going to work. This last class, a full class in the academy is 60. We were only able to hire 27.
How much does it cost to put a person through the academy?
Well, training all the way through FTO, it's $170,000 per person.
This is so ridiculous. It's so stupid that they're doing this. And I can't blame the people. I can't blame the officers. You know, they need to be making a livable wage. They need to be making money. They need to be paid for the work that they're actually doing. So they go through the academy. They realize that they're getting the crappiest pay in the Bay Area, in the benefits, the worst in the state, and they're going to move on. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, they have, and they continue to look. I've been talking to officers that when they hit 10 years, they're going to be moving on. When they hit 20 years, they're going to be moving on. And it goes beyond just money and benefits. It's about how your employer treats you and respects you or doesn't respect you.
Well, this overtime thing, though, in addition to it costing time and a half to have to pay people to work overtime rather than having a sufficient amount staffed on the force so that you're paying regular time. In addition to that, when you mandate overtime, I mean, we're talking about a very stressful job. Is it wise to have people working overtime constantly when you're doing police work? Isn't that taxing on your brain, your psyche, your body?
And so what's happening now is, when I said we have 450 officers in patrol, our bottom line minimum staffing number is 492. So we have all of those positions are being made up with overtime already. On top of the fact that we can't fill all those overtime positions, we're now going to be stealing from special operations one day a month to pull them from their assignments to help out with patrol.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and let's open up the phone lines to our listeners. We're talking about San Jose and the police department in San Jose. What's going on down there? It's a real mess in San Jose right now. And my guest is Jim Unland. He's the president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. You can join us at 808-0810. That's 8080-810. Right now we check in, get a little traffic update with Jim Bartow. Hey, Jim.
Hello there, and we have some clothing on 101 northbound before.
Good evening, I'm Pat Thurston. We're talking about the police department in San Jose. I mean, it's been decimated. It's been destroyed. This was a good department. This was a really highly functioning department, a department that was the envy of other police departments. And over the past several years, it's just being destroyed. It's being destroyed in the name of cutting costs. Really? This is where you want to cut costs? You know, it seems to me that there are fundamental services that cities are responsible for, and some of the most basic are police services and fire services. Those are the basic things. And if you're a big city, you need a big department, and you need a department that knows what it's doing. You don't need to have these kind of attrition rates. So you go after pensions. You know, I'm stymied by all of that. 808810 is the telephone number. Oh, I should say I have a guest with me. His name is Jim Unland. He's the president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. And I'm going to get to the phone calls in just a minute. I want to ask you a quick question before we take phone calls. And that is, you are not real happy with the current mayor, but there is a candidacy that you are supporting. Who is it and why?
We are. It's Dave Cortese. I refer to him as the only adult in the room. He gets it. There has to be a balance between cost-cutting measures and providing services. And the candidate he's running against, Sam Liccardo, is a current council member, a very close Reed ally, who doesn't get it and wants to continue on this path and wants to continue the litigation and wants to continue cost cutting as far as more pay cuts for police officers in the form of Measure B givebacks, and it's just going to be the wrong direction.
And this needs to be resolved, because if this isn't resolved and resolved soon, this department is, the problems it's experiencing now, these are just going to become exponential.
Yeah, we're running out of time. November this year is the ballot measure we need to reach to get to a charter change to fix Measure B. If we don't do that, then we have to wait for another 2 years per state law to have another shot at it. We don't have 2 years.
808810, our telephone number. That's 808-0810. Let's talk with John in San Francisco. John, welcome to KGO. You're on the air with Jim Unlin. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. The problem for San Jose is that they are the first. They are ahead of the curve, but the thing that'll solve it is time, because it's only a matter of time before every city and every county in the state and throughout the country is going to have to adopt similar measures. The days of a 21-year-old police officer retiring with an 80% pension at age 40 are over. We simply can't afford to pay somebody for the rest of their lives at that rate. Now, if they want to get off the street because they can't hack it anymore because of age or physical, ability, let them sit in an office for another 25 years and retire at age 65 like everybody else. They'd still have a pension, which is more than 90% of the people in this country get.
Yeah,
but you
want everybody to have a pension, right? You don't begrudge people because they do have pensions. You think everybody should have a pension, right, John?
Yeah, but it's just not reality anymore, Pat. You're living in the past.
No. It needs to be reality. You know what? You're a quitter.
No.
You're allowing them to pit us against one another.
And you're Don Quixote tilting at windmills.
Well, I think not. I think
your time is over.
No, you know what I am? I'm somebody who won't give up. I'm somebody who recognizes that we're the ones who actually have the power. Instead, we go like little sheep. We're just gonna fall down, let them abuse us any way we want to, and resent one another when one of us actually starts making headway somewhere. If we don't start standing in solidarity, we won't have any power. If we stand in solidarity, it's the only way we're going to be able to get anywhere. But I think the question was actually posed to you, Jim.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate John's question. I do. But the idea that San Jose is somehow going to set the market for the rest of the state is folly, to be quite honest with you. What's happened is the state has set the standard for the state, and they have a second tier in place. It's called PEPRA. It's 2.7% for every year worked at age 57 is the new retirement age, not 50. And John, we don't allow officers to retire at 40 on a service retirement, so ours is minimum of 50. Secondly, police work is a different model. And to think that we can work into our 60s or 65, and I appreciate the idea that we're just going to put us all on desk jobs. We don't have a lot of desk jobs that we can work. Ours is street-related. Ours is going out and physically putting our hands on crooks and a lot of times having to fight them. And it's a young person's job. The other component, it's not just physical. There's an emotional component, an emotional toll to our job. There are only so many child molest victims that I can talk to through my career. There are only so many 85-year-old women who get raped that we have to encounter, which is just what happened last week. That takes a toll. And to think that we can do it into our 60s is just not an understanding of the job we do. And so while I agree and have for the last 4 years publicly said that we need to get the cost of pensions down, there are ways to do that and still provide for our officers to work. Our new plan that we are trying to work out with Ed Chicata, the new city manager, would have had a retirement age of 55, so it would have raised it by 5 years.
Yeah, this race to the bottom is really unnerving. Do police officers suffer from PTSD?
They do. Probably all of us do, and we don't realize it.
808810, the telephone number. Let's go to Antoine calling from Brentwood. Antoine, hi. Welcome to KGO. You're on with Jim Unlin. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Pat? First, tell the caller, man, keep fighting. I worked in the county of Oakland, Alameda County, for 15 years, and it's been a struggle there as well. But what I wanted to ask is, what caused the shift? I understand that they brought this over. Was this something that was internally by your sworn administration, or was this totally by city management and city government?
This was led. The effort was led by Mayor Chuck Reed, and he got a willing council majority, including Sam Liccardo, who's running for mayor. And they ignored our warnings. Look, this was all predictable. The demise and the collapse of the San Jose Police Department was predictable, and we called our shot every step along the way. And they ignored us. They continued to say, well, people won't leave. And even when people started to leave, they said, well, we can hire our way out of this. And now we have 29 hires or 27 hires for an academy of 60. We're not hiring our way out of it. And they still don't get up and say publicly that they messed this up and they have to fix it. We're out of time to do it.
Yeah, they know they messed up. They don't want to admit it for political reasons. They're embarrassed by it. They're too proud. It shows that they're not very good leaders, because leaders will say, we took the wrong direction. We're going to learn from that. Now we're going to move in the right direction. You know, those are not leaders. 80-88-10, the telephone number. Let's go with Dan. He's calling from San Jose. Dan, hi. Welcome to KGO. You're on with Jim Unlin. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Fine.
Good. Jim, how you doing?
Good, Dan. How are you?
I'm all right. Hey, Jim, there's something more I'd like to tell you about. But here's the one thing that I think really undermined the police position. The Mercury News back several years, maybe a decade ago, was running a newspaper about a newspaper story about how much the police were making. There was a 44-year-old sergeant, and they said that he made $250,000 a year with overtime and with college degrees, and he was had a dog and all that kind of stuff. And that is the one thing that I think led off when the economy took a dump and Reed started going after you guys.
Well, you know, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I think that has happened is there have been cases, and this happens with retirement too, where there have been abuses of the system. It doesn't mean that that's what everybody's getting, but there have been abuses of the system. And I think probably the same thing when they print out salaries and you see that somebody's getting so much overtime that they're making $250,000 or $500,000. You think, what the hell is that about? But to me, most of those cases, that has to do with the mismanagement of government. It's not, you know, this officer didn't do anything wrong.
We need to put a certain number of officers on the street. It takes a certain number of officers to go catch a felon. I'll give you an example of overtime. My unit, Crew, which is the covert response unit, spent the last week looking for the second suspect who raped an 85-year-old woman after a home invasion. It took overtime.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. There were 15, 18-hour days looking for him, and thankfully we caught him a few days ago. But to think that it's going to happen on the cheap, that's just not reality.
But most officers, most sergeants are not making $250,000 a year.
Not at all. In fact, our top step officer makes about $100,000 a year.
We're out of time here, but hang on. We have to go to John Lobertini with the news. I'm Pat Thurston. You're listening to KGO. Good evening. I'm Pat Thurston. Jim Unlin is my guest. He's the president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. So yeah, it's a union. It's a public union, and he's representing the cops. He's representing the union members, and I couldn't agree with him more on this. So we started this discussion about an hour ago. We're coming back to this discussion now, but we're going to recap a little bit. San Jose's in trouble. San Jose's got problems with their police department. Now, what I've been on the air complaining about is that it seems to me that there's no foresight in San Jose, that once they decided that they were going to change benefits, have this second tier. Now, does the second tier? Okay, I'm getting myself confused. The second tier that we talk about. So, tier one, that's the employment contract that the police officers who were there previous to Measure B are functioning under?
Yeah, everyone that was hired before Measure B was implemented for Tier 2 is in Tier 1. It is the pretty much standard police pension. It's protected by the vested rights doctrine. It's guaranteed. It's part of what we won in the court battle here recently.
So is the Measure B was only concerning pensions, or does Tier 2 also involve salaries, and is there a different salary structure in Tier 2?
It didn't directly involve salaries, but for Tier 1 it did. It allowed for a 16% pay cut, mandatory pay cut, if they won that section. And so far the judges upheld that, and yet the city hasn't moved forward with that, which makes you wonder why have it there and why win it in court if you're not going to implement it. We have a stay agreed to with the city for another year or so, so they're not implementing those pay cuts. If they do, and Sam Liccardo has said he wants to, we will have hundreds of more officers leave.
And you've already lost 250 something?
Over 250 resignations, with another few hundred more that retired early because of all this turmoil.
So you're way understaffed right now.
We are by a good 400 from a number that was already low staffed. We provided police protections back at our top number, which was just over 1,400 officers for a city of 1 million. That was far below the normal average across the country. But we were able to do so. It was a proactive, very professional, very hardworking department, very highly motivated department. What we have now is not that at all.
No. Morale has got to be in the toilet.
It is.
And why would a high-quality police officer or somebody who wanted to enter the police force, maybe, somebody brand new, somebody right out of college, why would they go to San Jose? I mean, why? What would be attractive to San Jose at this point in time when they could go someplace else? If they want to be in the Bay Area, they could go to another department and be treated better.
San Jose is a very attractive place if you want to break into the profession of law enforcement, but you're not going to stay. The class that first came in under Tier 2, 50 were hired. Less than a year later, we're down to 13. And we can't keep those kind of numbers. As far as our veteran officers, they've realized that they're making $1,500 to $2,000 more a month wherever they're going elsewhere, and they're treated so much better. They're treated with so much more respect, and it's made all the difference in their lives. They say they're not under this dark cloud anymore. They don't have the financial stress they had while working at San Jose. They miss their friends. They miss the work environment of working in San Jose. But beyond that, it's been the right choice.
Are they leaving to go to the same place, or are they all over the place?
All over the place, my nephew included. My nephew was one of the first to leave a few years back. He went down to Texas. So we've had people actually leave the state. Most are staying in the Bay Area. We've had a few go to Oakland, and everyone knows the challenges that Oakland is having.
Right.
And so when you're having officers leave San Jose to go to Oakland, alarm bells need to be going off.
Well, one of the things that I've also indicated is a concern to me is the quality of officers, the quality of individual that goes into the police force. I mean, policing, it's tough. It's a tough job to do right. I mean, I suppose you could take anybody in and, put a badge on them and give them a gun and teach them some of the basics. But really good police officers, it's tough to find somebody who's really good at it and somebody you want to be on the force. I can tell you that I've been around cops forever. I have a brother, I have a nephew, I have another brother who used to be a cop. I worked for the Secret Service. I knew federal cops. And when I lived in Florida, there were a couple of people I knew who wanted to be police officers. And it scared me because I knew what kind of people they were. And I was scared to death. That whole idea about hot dog cops and how you just get all worked up and you can't calm a situation. Instead, you get all excited and your ego takes over. That's what these guys were like. And I was scared to death. One of them was rejected right out. The other one went through the academy, but he didn't last a year. They fired him. Thank God they fired him. He wasn't suited to it. How are you going to get the quality of people you need if you can't be competitive in San Jose?
That's the challenge our recruiters are having. The standards are high. They need to be high.
They
need to remain high.
Yes.
But what's happening is you'll hear the mayor or the next wannabe mayor, Sam Liccardo, run around saying everything's okay. We have thousands of people applying. It doesn't matter how many are applying. It matters how many make it through that process. It's
right.
a rigorous process, backgrounding, polygraph, psychological, etc.
Right.
And when we hired 27 for an academy class that holds 60,
yeah,
that shows you that not many applicants with San Jose are making it through that process.
Right.
And so for them
Is that what they're going to do next? Are they going to lower the standards so that they can increase the number of people on the force?
If they do, we will raise Cain. I hope not. But I'll tell you, when I was hired, and this is 26 years ago now, when I was hired, I was told flat out, you need a 97% to get hired. What we're going down to now is in the low 80s.
No kidding.
And those are making it through. It doesn't mean that we don't have good cops that can score in the 80s, but it shows that
already lowered the standards.
We're lowering a number to broaden the pool so that we can get even 26, 27 applicants to make it through. And that's a concern.
Jim Unlin, president of the San Jose Police Officers Association, is my guest. So what happens when you... I don't want to paint a doomsday scenario, but I would ask the people of San Jose, is it really worth it to you to not be competitive so that your police officers, again, I'll use that term, race to the bottom, that you're lowering standards just so that you can get bodies into your police force? And if that's what it comes down to, what's the ultimate impact of that? It's not good. You need a good functioning police department. Hell, we've seen around the country what happens when you have a poor police department or you've got really bad relations between the police and the community. Is that what San Jose is headed for?
What's been frustrating is the deal we were working out with the city manager at Chickada was a 75% formula, the same formula I had when I came onto this department. It would have rolled back pension benefits 20, 30 years. And it would have provided our officers still the worst pension plan for police in the state. But we thought, while still the worst, at least it's close enough to competitive that we could have kept them. The second tier that the mayor and the rest of the council that support him provides is so below standard, we can't keep anyone.
Right. 808-0810 is the telephone number. Jim Unlin, my guest, president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. We check in now with Deetra Miles, find out about traffic. My guest here in studio with me is Jim Unlin. He's the president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. We're talking about the San Jose Police Department. So, okay, I want to back up a little bit to something that you were talking about. There was actually, so Measure B is something that was put before the voters. It was something that was created, it was brought up by the mayor. And the mayor thought that this was a really good idea. He got the support of the council, put it to the voters. Pension has become a dirty word anymore for some reason, especially public pension. I don't get that because we, who are the working class of America, we really need to stand together and demand that all of us have pensions, have some sort of security when we can no longer work. But okay, so Measure B does pass. There are lawsuits because there are aspects of Measure B that appear not to be legal. And so you and the head of the Firefighters Union? Mm-hmm. So you guys get together with the negotiator for the city, who is the city manager. He is empowered to negotiate with you. And you come to an agreement. You have resolved it. The whole thing's done. It's ready. And as a result of that agreement, how much money was the city going to save?
Well, by our calculations with the actuaries that we brought in, and these are independent actuaries, it would have been $300 million over the next 15 years compared to had all members been in Tier 1. And we were not surprised that the council did not support this. They are married to this Measure B, and whether the ship continues to sink with all hands on deck, they don't care. They don't have the political fortitude to go out, admit they made a mistake, go back to the voters in this November and fix it.
So after it was agreed upon by their own negotiator, the city manager, he takes it back and the council rejects it.
What happened in closed session, Pat, I don't know, because that's where those discussions took place.
Have you heard anything from the council since then? Are they asking for further negotiations?
No, it's crazy. They've come up now with their another go it alone approach. They're talking now about their own ballot measure, Measure B fix, that is more ludicrous than the first. It talks about allowing all these 250 plus officers who have resigned to come back as Tier 1 officers. Currently, Measure B forces them to come back as Tier 2. And what we've tried to explain to them time and time again, until you fix the underlying problems that force these people to leave to begin with, until you fix that, they're not coming back.
Why would they come back anyway if they're working someplace else?
They wouldn't. We equate it to the captain of the Titanic shouting to the passengers that have made it to lifeboats, come on board, come on back to the Titanic. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, we've got a better lifeboat for you. Come on back. Well, and that's one of the sad things, is that it does seem like the ship is sinking. And we were talking a little bit off the air about how there was a really good department that was there, a really good police department, and the people who initially became a big part of that, there are a lot of people now are retiring. They're nearing that retirement age. So they're going to be leaving the force because of that. That's going to cost a lot of money. Then in addition, you're not able to, I mean, it just seems like the attrition is going to kill the department altogether, and I have no idea what's going to fill the void. Is it possible, in some police departments they've gone to other law enforcement entities in other jurisdictions and asked for their support? Is it possible San Jose is going to have to do something like that?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all within the next 4 or 5 years that we become a contract city with the county and have the sheriff take over.
No kidding.
No.
You wouldn't like to see that happen.
It'd be terrible. My brother was on this force. He retired 10 years before me here. I look at the generations of officers who have built this department and watched what Reed and Liccardo have done in just four short years, destroying this place. And to see the pension that they threw out there for our second tiers, it's worse than their own pension plan. The mayor and Sam Liccardo have a better pension plan than what they offer our second-tier officers. We have response times for priority twos. These are emergency-type calls. Our goal is to get there within 11 minutes. We're up over 20 minutes now. We cannot do the job that we're tasked to do. And as our numbers continue to shrink, at some point you have to look around for other alternatives. And realistically, the sheriff's department is about the only realistic alternative if this trend continues.
But if they have to contract with the sheriff's department would need additional officers in order to fill the void. How could that possibly save them any money, would it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it would, because the sheriff is going to have to recoup all of their cost to employ these officers. So what would essentially happen is San Jose officers would kind of get melded into the sheriff's department. The same officers protecting the streets of San Jose would still be doing it, only under the patch of the sheriff's department.
Would that impact the residents of San Jose in some way?
I think it would. You now, as a city, begin to lose control of your police department. You're no longer picking your police chief. You no longer have direct council control over your department. It's now run through the county.
Well, it's all very disconcerting. What do you think we should do about this?
Well, it has to happen very quickly. We're out of time. Unfortunately, our council is off on vacation. They take a 4 or 5 week vacation every year around July. They're not back till August 5th. August 5th is the last date they have to take a Measure B fix before the voters in November. We have to fix Measure B if we're going to turn this around.
Is what you negotiated with the city manager, was that a fix to Measure B?
Absolutely.
Is that what they could have used?
Absolutely.
And now there can't be any negotiations. Nothing can happen until they come back from their vacay?
I guess they could come back. The mayor could order them back, and he should order them back, and they should say this is a crisis.
Is the problem that the council and the mayor don't see this as a crisis?
I think we have a mayor and 2 council members who are termed out, who are driving forces behind this. Liccardo, if he loses the election, he's termed out as well. It'll be somebody else's mess to clean up. And they're not going to go out publicly and admit they messed this up.
Now, the election for mayor is in November?
It is.
But they have to do this by August.
Correct.
Is there any possibility that even if your choice for mayor, and that would be Dave Cortese, if he were elected in November, would he be able to fix it, or are you out of time?
That's the problem. We're out of time. The state law prohibits charter changes, which is what we would have to do in San Jose to fix this measure. That has to be done on even-numbered years in November. So if we don't get it done this November, we're waiting for November of 2016. We have a retirement rate that's going to double starting in January, with academy classes that are less than half full, and with academy groups that aren't staying even a year before they go to another agency.
Right.
We are imploding, and our politicians are on vacation, and it is a crime.
The people who are in San Jose who are listening right now, is there anything individually that they can do to get the council to respond, to do something on time?
They need to flood those council offices with calls, emails, any way they can communicate with their council member and say, get back to work. It's interesting that we have police officers, dispatchers, and call takers on mandatory overtime while we have a council and a mayor that are off on vacation.
Off on vacation while this, such a crucial issue, is pending and has to be taken care of and needs to be taken care of immediately. Well, Jim, I got to tell you, I'm not feeling better about your being here because I still am very frustrated about what's going on in San Jose, and I don't think that the elected officials in San Jose are doing right by the people, and I think a lot of the people don't understand that they're going to get screwed in this, and this may end up being just a horrible mess ultimately.
No, they misled the people back in 2012. They said vote for Measure B and you will get more city services. And that's not what happened.
Jim Unlin, president of the San Jose Police Officers Association. Come back, won't you?
Thank you, I will.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us. Right now, we're going to check in with John Lobertini. He's in the KGO Radio Newsroom with this update. John?
Hi, Pat. Topping our news at the bottom of the hour, more trouble on the border. The Obama administration is facing a host of legal, humanitarian